need for the voice. And when it came time to leave this imagined life behind, she was older and more capable of looking out for herself. She knew better than to ride her bike into traffic. She had long ago mastered the dangers of the house, learned to stand upwind of campfires, learned, the hard way, not to poke blueberries up her nose. Only very occasionally did the voice return, to warn her of an unfriendly dog, or sometimes person. But as the months passed, she heard fewer and fewer of its warnings, which is why she was so startled when, as she sat on the living room floor before her record-setting haul of Halloween candy, unwrapping a Three Musketeers, the voice suddenly called out, "Stop! Do not eat that Three Musketeers!" Only then did Katya remember. That day at school, she had overheard Jonah Michaels talking about people who put poison in Halloween candy. "Do you know every single person who gave you that candy?" the voice asked. The voice was right. There could be poison in any one of these candies. Once again, the voice had saved her life. That night, the voice slept in Katya's room. It was like a slumber party, except the kind of slumber party that isn't very fun. Like when you sleep over at your much younger cousin's house and have to pretend you're squirrel sisters. Or like the kind of slumber party where you're awakened every half hour by the family's grandfather clock. And just when you're about to finally fall asleep, a cat walks across your face. That's the kind of slumber party it was. The kind that felt to Katya like it would never, ever end. To be continued.
Odd. Immediately, Julian knew that something was not right. He could feel it all over his body. And then he saw it. That. His head spun at the thought of how close he had come to stepping on it. He came this close. 22 dirty gray steps down to the subway. That's how many there were supposed to be. There were always 22 dirty gray steps. Today, though, there were 21 dirty gray steps, and one very shiny gray step with not one scratch or spot of dirt on it anywhere. This shiny step meant that Julian now had a problem. There was only one step like it, and one meant odd. And odd numbers were the very worst numbers. Odd numbers made everything all wrong. However, if Julian were to step over that one shiny step, he would then have to step over a second step in order to make it 2 steps that he stepped over. And the very obvious problem with stepping over a second step is that this second step would be a gray step, a single gray step. One gray step. Odd. Julian's therapist, if she were here with him, would not only make him step on that one shiny step, which now appeared to be floating and swirling before his eyes, but she would make him say the number out loud. Sometimes, in her office, she made him read an entire list of numbers, terrible numbers, odd numbers. And every time, she would say, "See, Julian, did anything bad happen?" This was a difficult question to answer, because in a way, something bad did happen. There was the shaky, dizzy feeling, and the cold, sweaty feeling, followed by a tightness in his head, as if a giant hand had grabbed hold of his skull and squeezed. And always, in that moment, Julian found it difficult to breathe, as if another giant hand had grabbed hold of his throat. His therapist also liked to say, "Next time, it will be even easier," when he had never agreed to it being easy in the first place. And anyway, this was also untrue. Never was it ever any easier the next time. It was difficult enough to just sort out which was worse. Step on that one shiny step, awful, or step over that one shiny step, horrible, because both possibilities gave him an equally terrible feeling in his head and chest. And so, Julian felt it best to wait for a while, at least until the terrible feeling passed. This presented an entirely new problem, however. There were certain people from Julian's school who also rode this subway. Certain people who knew about his preference for even numbers, and if those certain people